They told you the Emperor's light would save you, that to serve him was to stand within the only safety left in a galaxy of madness. But now the light feels like a flame, and you are burning. The manufactorum walls tremble with the roar of plasma furnaces, incense thick enough to choke, vox chants repeating 1,000 prayers of repentance. Somewhere behind those prayers are screams, not of heretics, not of Xenos, but of loyal servants, men and women who faltered for a single heartbeat and were offered no forgiveness. In the Imperium of man, failure is not an error. It is sin. The Emperor does not need the faithful to succeed. He demands that they never stop serving, even if it means serving in agony, in silence, or in pieces. A trooper who hesitates, a scribe who miscalculates, a priest who doubts, all are cast into the same furnace of redemption. They vanish into servitor flesh or penitential song, or the blind machinery of endless work. Their bodies endure what their spirits could not. And through their suffering, the Imperium calls itself pure. The Emperor's mercy is a myth whispered only by those who have not yet failed. If these truths disturb you, good. They should. For only through remembrance does humanity endure. Subscribe, share, and bear witness to the cost of faith in the age of the Imperium. Let these stories remind you, loyalty is not protection. It is a sentence written in blood and silence. There is a moment before the vow is spoken when the world still feels human. The air still carries the scent of rain and oil. The heart still remembers what it is to fear, to hope, to hesitate. Then the oath begins, and everything else is burned away. In the Imperium of man, words are chains forged in faith and sealed in blood. To serve the Emperor is to offer not only your life, but the quiet surrender of choice itself. On the induction floors of a hive world regiment, recruits kneel shoulder to shoulder. Their breath clouds in the cold, the concrete slick with wax from the candles burning at their feet. A preacher in threadbare robes raises the aquila, its wings blackened by soot. "You are the Emperor's now," he intones. "Your flesh, his weapon, your failure, his burden to cleanse." Each head bows lower, the chant rising like smoke. For the Emperor, for the Emperor. It is not devotion that binds them. It is fear disguised as faith. Laren remembered that fear long after he took the oath. Once a laborer in the manufactoria, he joined the Astra Militarum to escape starvation, believing service was redemption. On his third campaign, when the sky turned green with orc fire and the trenches flooded with oil and ash, he learned what redemption truly cost. Orders screamed through the Vox grill, drowned beneath artillery thunder. His lasgun slipped in his trembling hands, jammed in the mud. For 1 second he froze. One heartbeat of failure. When the counterattack ended, so did his name. The commissar walked the line with a bolt pistol in one hand and a prayer book in the other. There was no rage in his voice, only ritual. One life to restore the Emperor's order. The bolt cracked like thunder. Lauren fell among the corpses of his brothers. The platoon marched on, reciting the catechism of duty. His body became part of the trench wall before dawn. In the Imperium, that is how sin is washed away, with flesh, with silence, with the illusion of balance restored. No record will speak of Lauren's trembling hands, his hunger, or his fear. Only the data slate notation remains. Trooper executed for dereliction, faith rebalanced. Far above the battlefield, in the endless halls of the administratum, oaths are written instead of spoken. Billions of clerks swear daily loyalty to the Emperor, sealing contracts of obedience with wax and blood. Yet even here, surrounded by relics and incense, the terror of failure is absolute. A single incorrect number, a tithe misplaced, can doom entire systems. When such an error is found, the punishment is mathematical. The scribe's name is erased from the archives, his lineage voided, his remains rendered into parchment for the next decree. Faith in the Imperium is not a comfort, it is accounting. Every life, every action, every faltering heartbeat measured against perfection. And perfection in a decaying galaxy is death by another name. Every oath in the Imperium begins as devotion and ends as dread. The faithful are told that to serve is to be seen by the Emperor himself, but few understand what that truly means. His gaze is not gentle illumination, it is exposure. To be seen by him is to be stripped of all pretense, to stand naked before a God who cannot forgive because he has forgotten what forgiveness is. And still billions recite the words each morning, terrified of what silence might cost them. In the underhive of Varnus Theta, the oath is whispered instead of spoken. Men and women press blood-stained hands to corroded aqueous painted on rusted walls, their prayers swallowed by the endless machinery that devours their lives. For them, failing the Emperor is inevitable. The machines break, the quotas are impossible, the overseers demand miracles that only saints could perform. Yet even knowing this, they keep repeating the litany, the Emperor protects. Because if they stop, they will be taken. When the work quotas fall short, the enforcers come in the night. The workers are herded into the square beneath the half-lit icons of the Omnissiah. A tech priest steps forward, mechadendrites twitching like metal serpents. He announces the sacred rite of reclamation. There are no protests. Those chosen kneel willingly, some weeping, some silent, as their bodies are bound for transformation. Within the manufactorum, screams and the hiss of sacred oils merge into the drone of servitors awakening. Another soul erased, another machine perfected. To the mechanicus, this is balance. Flesh, weak and prone to error, remade into steel that cannot fail. The Imperium calls it justice, but those who survive to witness it know the truth. The sound of the drills never leaves them. It hums in their dreams, a reminder that even obedience is no guarantee of safety. The ecclesiarchy teaches that oaths are chains of faith, but in the cathedrams of penitence, those chains are made real. Sinners are bound by the wrists and throat to the walls of sacred vaults, forced to sing until their voices collapse into hoarse whispers. Priests walk among them, striking with rods to maintain rhythm. The hymns rise like smoke, filling the vaults with a single trembling harmony. To fail in tone, to falter in pitch is to invite punishment. And yet behind their bleeding lips some still pray, not for redemption but for death. Still the Imperium endures. It thrives on this ritual of fear, on oaths renewed by suffering. To serve the Emperor is to exist in the shadow of a god who demands perfection from creatures born flawed. Those who stumble are not simply punished, they are erased, rewritten, turned into instruments of faith. Lauren's name is gone, the worker's face is forgotten, the singer's voice is indistinguishable. Yet their devotion remains eternal and anonymous. That is the purpose of the oath, to ensure that when the flesh fails, the machine of the Imperium does not. And somewhere deep within that machinery, a question begins to stir, a forbidden whisper that passes between lips cracked by devotion. If the Emperor's service consumes every soul it touches, then who truly serves him? The oath does not end when the words fade. It lingers, etched into the skin, burned into the mind, whispered by the walls themselves. In the Imperium, the oath is a living parasite, feeding on fear and memory until nothing human remains. Even the dead serve. Their bones are ground for sacred mortar, their skulls wired into the cogitators of shrines, their names stripped from the records and replaced by serial codes. Every failure, every faltering breath becomes raw material for the next act of faith. On the fortress world of Karsus 9, the 117th penal cohort marches through a canyon of blackened stone. Their chains clatter with each step, the sound swallowed by the wind that howls through the Emperor's statues towering above. Each statue's eyes are hollow, carved to remind the condemned that the Emperor sees all even when he does not look. These soldiers were oathbreakers, deserters, thieves, and cowards spared execution only to be sent to die in his name. They wear their sins branded across their armor, each letter an open wound. Commissar Thane walks among them reciting the litany of absolution through a cracked vox grill. His voice carries like a ghost. Service cleanses sin. Death seals faith. The men march in silence, knowing the words are not for salvation but submission. The Imperium does not seek to redeem them. It only demands they die usefully. Every meter of ground gained in their hopeless assault is another ledger entry balanced. Their blood is currency. When the bombardment begins, the sky burns with the Emperor's wrath. Orbital strikes sanctioned as divine correction. The penal cohort charges into the firestorm, not for victory but for the illusion of it. Some scream his name as they die, others remain silent, knowing even their final breath will be counted as a number in a report. The survivors, if any remain, will be reassigned, renamed, rewritten. The oath continues through them like infection. Far from the front, in the shadowed catacombs of Terra, a different kind of failure festers. A scribe named Iora works beneath the flickering glow of lumen globes, her fingers stained with ink and blood. For years she has copied edicts without question, her quill tracing the same imperial phrases until her wrist aches. One night exhaustion wins. A number, insignificant to any but her, drifts from her pen. One digit astray in a tithe requisition bound for the segmentum solar. a clerical failure invisible in the storm of bureaucracy. Months later, the world of Delathis starves. Supply chains collapse. Millions die. Iora's ink has become execution. The mistake is discovered, traced, and sanctified as sin. When they come for her, she does not resist. The Arbites drag her through the corridors, past statues of saints who once served as scribes themselves. She is not granted confession. Her tongue is branded so she cannot lie. Her eyes sealed with wax so she cannot witness her own sentencing. Her remains will be pulped for parchment, her flesh turned into vellum for the decree that replaces her. The oath is a mirror polished with suffering, reflecting not the Emperor's glory but humanity's terror of insignificance. Every soul who swears it prays to matter, to be seen, to be remembered. Yet the Imperium remembers only the failure, never the face, and so they serve, not out of love but fear, fear of being forgotten, fear of being erased, fear that their silence will mean nothing at all. There are those who say the Emperor's light sees all, that it reaches even the forgotten corners of the galaxy, where ash buries entire cities and prayers fade into static. But the truth is colder. The Imperium's watchfulness is not divine, it is engineered. In every hab-block and shrine, the oath is enforced not only by faith but by surveillance. Servo skulls glide through the air, their eye lenses glowing with the sickly red of machine devotion. Each lens records, each vox captures, each whisper becomes data. Obedience is measured. Doubt is archived. On the shrine world of Rithmir, there is a saying, the Emperor's gaze is the silence between heartbeats. The locals believe that even thought itself is judged, that one stray doubt can summon retribution. The ecclesiarchy encourages it. Fear, after all, is the purest form of loyalty. The confessionals of Rithmir never sleep. Behind iron grills, the priests listen as thousands pour out their secrets. Envy, hesitation, exhaustion, despair. The priests record each one in ink and blood. They never offer forgiveness, only instruction. Serve harder. One of them, Confessor Valen, had served for 60 years. His voice was rough with incense, his hands cracked by decades of anointing the condemned. Yet he too began to doubt. Each night as the lines of penitence stretched longer, he wondered if the Emperor's silence was truly divine or simply absence. His sermons grew quieter, his prayers uncertain. And when his hesitation was finally noticed, his brothers acted without question. They came during the evening mass. The choir sang as Valen was dragged from the pulpit, his robes torn, his confession forced upon the altar. The congregation watched in silence as his tongue was nailed beside the relic of Saint Ephraim, so that his voice might serve even in death. The hymn did not falter. His body was burned before dawn, the ashes mixed into the incense. Every breath of prayer carried a trace of him. Such is the Imperium's perfection. Nothing wasted, not even a man's final doubt. Elsewhere, in the bowels of a void ship adrift between stars, a different kind of oath takes hold. The crew of the Litany of Dawn chant their devotions to the Emperor and the machine spirit before every warp translation. But their captain, a woman named Solane Arctis, has begun to dream of a light that speaks. It whispers not of duty or judgment, but of release. When she confides in the ship's confessor, his expression freezes behind his rebreather mask. He blesses her with sanctified oil, then reports her to the Ordo Hereticus. By the time the inquisitorial shuttle docks, Solane is already waiting in her quarters, dressed in her captain's uniform, her service medallions polished to a mirror sheen. The Inquisitor's voice is gentle, almost kind, as he reads her crimes. Spiritual contamination, failure of purity, dereliction of faith. She does not resist when the bolt pistol is raised. Her last words are a whisper meant only for herself. If he is truly watching, he knows I tried. Her body is burned. Her ship continues its course without delay. The oath endures. For in the Imperium of man, even death does not end service. It only refines it. Those who fail are not forgotten because they cannot be. Their ashes feed the incense of devotion. Their silence fills the void their screams once occupied. The Imperium does not destroy its broken, it recycles them. And somewhere among the uncounted dead, the Emperor's light flickers, not in pity, not in wrath, but in endurance. The Manufactoria never sleep. Their breath is the hiss of Prometheum. Their heartbeat the endless pounding of pistons and gears. The air tastes of iron, oil, and ash, a constant haze that stains both flesh and faith. To enter their depths is to walk into the lungs of the Imperium itself, and to see what becomes of those who fail. Here, beneath cathedrals of rust and light, The tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus labor without pause. Their robes sweep across floors slick with sacred oil, their mechadendrites weaving in perfect rhythm, their Benharic cant echoing through the smoke. They call this place the Chamber of Renewal. Those who enter know it by another name, the Flesh Reclamation Halls. A line of penitents moves slowly forward, eyes hollow, wrists bound with copper wire. Each bears the mark of failure. A worker who slept through a siren, a guard who miscounted munitions, a clerk whose hands trembled at the wrong time. None resist. Resistance would be heresy, and heresy is a privilege denied to the condemned. They recite the canticle of submission, voices shaking, while the Magos overseeing them murmurs his own machine prayer, a litany of sanctification, of correction. When the doors seal behind them, the chant turns to screaming. The process is methodical, reverent. Flesh is stripped away, nerve by nerve, to make way for the Emperor's perfection. A mind that once dreamed is reduced to data, its memories sifted and erased. A skull is opened, the brain washed clean with blessed chemicals, and a new code inscribed where thought once lived. Steel replaces sinew, fiber replaces vein. What emerges from the forge is not a person but a solution, a servitor. In the eyes of the Mechanicus, this is not cruelty. It is mercy given form, weakness excised, purpose restored. The Magos records each transformation in perfect script, noting the ratio of flesh to steel, the number of blessings spoken over the machine. To him, the screams are not agony. They are hymns of purification. The Omnissiah demands perfection, and perfection cannot be achieved without loss. Once complete, the new servitors stand motionless in rows, their heads bowed as if in prayer. Cables snake from their spines into the floor, feeding data into the forges. Their faces, pale and still, retain fragments of humanity. A mouth frozen mid-word, an eye that still flickers with something that might have been memory. The tech priests never notice. They are already preparing the next. A child watches from the shadows, an initiate not yet ordained, his flesh still whole. His name is Selen. He has spent his entire life learning that flesh is failure, that emotion is entropy. Yet as he watches the process, something within him hesitates. The smell of burnt skin, the sound of bones cracking under iron, stirs something he cannot name. Pity. He whispers a prayer beneath his breath, not to the Omnissiah, but to the Emperor himself. Forgive them, he says, voice trembling, for they still tried to serve. The servitor before him stirs just for an instant. Its head turns, a single eye focusing on the boy. There is no awareness there, only reflex or perhaps something deeper. A fragment of the soul the Mechanicus swore had been erased. Then the power surge ends and the light fades. The body goes still once more. The Magos notices the boy's hesitation. His vox voice crackles through static. Emotion is corruption. Compassion is deviation. You will be corrected. Kellen lowers his gaze, reciting the creed of obedience. The punishment will come later. For now the forges continue their song. Each hammer beat another sermon in the church of perfection. And beyond the smoke, the Emperor's statues watch with blind, gilded eyes as humanity perfects itself, one failure at a time. The reclamation halls stretch for miles beneath the manufactoria, a labyrinth of pipes and pulsing conduits where the air itself seems alive. Vox hymns echo through the steel, each tone resonating with the throb of machinery, creating a sound that is less song than pulse, the heartbeat of a god made of iron. The condemned are brought in lines through these tunnels, their heads shaved, their bodies branded with their crimes. Every scar becomes a circuit, every failure, a resource. Kellen walks beside the Magos as they descend deeper, the elder priest reciting the litany of redefinition. His mechadendrites drip sacred oils upon the floors where blood has already dried. Flesh is error, he chants. Steel endures. The initiates repeat the words, their voices blending with the machine hum. Only Kellen hesitates. The echo of that servitor's flickering eye haunts him, the unspoken memory of something that should not exist, the ghost of thought behind a hollow stare. They arrive at the conversion bay, where servitors hang suspended from hooks like mechanical fruit. The air is thick with ozone and the scent of antiseptic blood. Tech adepts move among the bodies, muttering binary prayers as they weld metal into muscle, bone into brass. Sparks rain down like dying stars. Some of the condemned are still alive during the process, their mouths sewn shut to silence blasphemy. Their hearts are kept beating by sacred pumps until the very last modification is complete. Chelin watches as one of the adepts, a woman older than steel itself, fits a fresh neural node into a waiting skull. "He was a guardsman," she says softly, almost reverently. "Cowardice at Vorsk's gate fled his post. Now he will never flee again." Her words are not cruel, they are liturgical. The transformation is faith through surgery. When the process ends, the servitor's eyes flick open. They glow with cold blue light void of any recognition. Its limbs twitch, responding to command code transmitted directly into its spine. "Designation Labor Unit 43 Kef," the adept announces. "Productivity restored." The Magos nods in approval. Chelin feels his stomach turn. He wonders if the man inside, the soldier who once bled and prayed and screamed, can still hear them. Rumors persist among the lower adepts of servitors that remember. Machines that mutter in their sleep cycles. Tools that twitch when no orders are given. Some whisper that the Emperor's spirit lingers within these hollow vessels, that he watches through their blind eyes, enduring alongside them. Others call it a flaw in the code, a ghost of personality too stubborn to die. The Mechanicus dismisses such talk as superstition, but Chelin has seen the way some servitors pause before shrines, their mechanical hands forming the sign of the Aquila without command. He has seen one shed a single tear of oil. When Chelin confesses these sightings, the Magos listens in silence. Then he opens a compartment in his chest and withdraws a thin, rusted blade. "Superstition," he intones, "is deviation, and deviation must be excised." He presses the blade into Chelin's palm until it draws blood. "Steel does not weep. You must learn the same." That night, Chelin dreams of the servitor's eyes glowing in the dark like candles flickering in prayer. He wakes to the sound of machinery humming his name. The next day, he is sent to oversee the disposal pits, where the failed conversions are cast. There he sees what the Mechanicus never speaks of. Bodies half steel, half human, twitching even as they are discarded into the fire. The flames rise high, illuminating the bronze face of the Omnissiah carved into the walls. Chelin kneels, trembling. He finally speaks the words every initiate is forbidden to utter aloud. "If this is perfection," he whispers, "then what is damnation?" The machines do not answer. Only the servitors' lifeless mouths move, as if still repeating a prayer they no longer understand. There are places in the Imperium where silence is forbidden, where sound itself becomes worship, and the act of speaking is both punishment and salvation. The cathedrals of penitence, vast chambers hollowed from mountains or buried within hive spires, are built for this purpose. Their walls drink sound like hungry lungs. Their domes are carved with the visages of saints and martyrs, mouths open in eternal chant. Here the failed come not to die but to sing. It begins at dawn, or what passes for dawn beneath the smog-choked skies. 1,000 voices rise at once, trembling, discordant, raw. Chains clatter as bodies sway in rhythm. The condemned are suspended by their wrists and throats from iron hooks, their feet barely touching the ground. Some wear masks of beaten gold, others the rags of their former uniforms. They were priests, guardsmen, scribes. Now they are the choir penitent. The ecclesiarchy calls them the Emperor's breath. In truth, they are his scream. Each hymn lasts hours. There are no pauses, no mercy. Overseer preachers walk the aisles with whips made of sanctified wire, cracking in time with the rhythm. If a voice falters, the whip sings louder. The sound of flesh tearing becomes percussion. The hiss of breath becomes harmony. Blood darkens the stones, drying into hieroglyphs of devotion. From the balconies above, noble pilgrims watch the ceremony, crossing themselves with incense smoke and murmuring blessings. They call it beautiful. At the center of the cathedral stands the great organ of St. Careth, a machine the size of a fortress, its pipes forged from the bones of martyrs. Every note it bellows shakes the air, vibrating through the lungs of the penitents until they scream just to stay alive. It is said that when the organ plays, the Emperor listens, but none who have sung beneath it have ever been able to say whether he answers. Among the choir is a woman named Sister Aphila, once a cantor of the Ministorum. Her crime, losing her voice during Mass. A simple illness, a brief silence, and her superiors declared her unfit to serve. Now her throat is raw from years of forced praise. Her hair is turned white, her eyes milked by candle smoke. Yet somewhere inside her the memory of true faith lingers, the kind that once brought tears instead of blood. During one night cycle, when the hymns fade for a brief moment of re-oiling and cleansing, Ephala dares to whisper a prayer not from the ecclesiarchy's book but from her heart. It is a plea, trembling and small. Emperor, if this is your will, let me understand it. A drop of wax falls from a candle above, landing on her shoulder. It burns through skin, but she does not flinch. Instead, she feels something else, a warmth faint and unfamiliar. Not the agony of the whip, not the fever of exhaustion, but something almost human. The moment passes. The overseer returns. The whip cracks. Her voice rises again, hoarse and broken, but no longer out of fear. Somewhere deep within, a tiny ember of defiance begins to burn. A faith not in the Emperor's perfection, but in the endurance of those who still sing despite it. The next morning, one of the nobles watching from above comments that the choir's harmony seems purer than before. The overseer nods proudly. He does not see the truth. The voices are not pure, they are changing. Beneath the endless hymns of obedience, another note has begun to form. A whisper within the chant, a word no one dares to speak aloud. Mercy. The hymns swell until sound itself becomes a weapon. It beats against the walls of the cathedral, rolling in waves that make the iron fixtures tremble. The air grows thick with the taste of copper and incense. It is said that if you stand close enough to the choir pits, you can feel the vibration in your teeth. The Emperor's judgment, thrumming beneath the skin. The penitents sing not for forgiveness, but survival. For when the hymn stops, they stop. And silence in the Imperium is a greater sin than blasphemy. Sister Ephala's throat is torn to ribbons, yet she sings still. Each note leaves a line of blood down her chest. Her voice cracks, but it does not fail. Around her, the other penitents sway in unison, their chains creaking in rhythm with the music. Overseers pace the aisles, tapping their batons against the floor like metronomes of suffering. The song is endless, a loop of devotion written centuries ago by a saint who went mad in the process. On the fourth night of Vigil Week, the great organ of St. Carith malfunctions. One of its ancient pipes bursts, flooding the hall with smoke and dust. The sound collapses into chaos, screams, coughing, confusion. For the first time in decades, the hymns falter. Ephala feels the chain slacken at her wrists. The overseers shout commands, their voices cracking with disbelief. The machine meant to symbolize divine order has failed. The silence that follows is terrifying. In that silence, Ephala hears something new. It is not the roar of machinery, nor the distant sermons of priests. It is the sound of breath, hundreds of them gasping, human, alive. For a heartbeat, every soul in the chamber remembers itself. Then the lashes begin again. The overseers whip the choir back into rhythm. The priests bellow litanies of correction. The organ is repaired within the hour, its pipes patched with the melted bones of those who died during the failure. The hymn resumes louder than before, as if to drown out the memory of that quiet moment. But something has changed. Beneath the music, Ephala begins to hear a second song. At first it's faint and the shiver of a counter-harmony rising from the condemned. Not words, not melody, but emotion made sound. A dirge born from exhaustion and grief. The overseers do not notice. To them, it is only distortion, the natural decay of mortal lungs. Yet the tone spreads. It threads through the hymn like smoke through light, twisting its meaning. What was once a song of praise becomes something else, a lament, a prayer for release. When night falls, one of the overseers confides in his superior. "There's something wrong with the voices," he whispers. "They sound aware." The superior only smiles beneath his respirator mask. "Awareness is not sin," he replies. "Doubt is." He orders the hymn extended for another week. By dawn, a dozen penitents are dead. Their bodies are cut down and taken to the crypts, where they will be rendered into candle wax for future masses. Yet the remaining singers do not weaken. Their voices grow clearer, stronger, more unified. Their pain has fused them into a single will that even the organ cannot drown. As the new hymn echoes through the cathedral, a pilgrim watching from the gallery feels tears run down her face. She does not understand why. The song no longer praises the emperor. It mourns him. And somewhere, deep beneath the noise, a whisper answers. It is not a word, not even a thought, just warmth, fleeting, impossible, like the echo of mercy. There are those who believe the black ships of the Inquisition come only for psychers, for the cursed, the touched, the dangerous minds that draw the warp's gaze. But that is not true. The ships take more than the gifted. They take the failed, those whose service to the Emperor has faltered beyond mortal repair, those whose minds, though loyal, have cracked under the weight of his silence. When the black ships arrive, their purpose is not always purification. Sometimes it is collection. They never arrive with warning. One moment a sky is clear. The next, the clouds split in silence as a vast shadow falls across the land. The air tastes of ozone, the smell of burned incense descending like a funeral. No siren sound, only the tolling of cathedral bells, ringing not for worship but for surrender. Entire populations drop to their knees, hands clasped in prayer, eyes fixed on the descending monolith that blots out the sun. The hulls of the black ships are painted the color of void. Light itself refuses to touch them. The Inquisition's sigil burns upon their flanks, half buried under centuries of ash and wax. When their ramps unfold, a line of silent figures descends, psyker wardens robed in black and bound in silver sigils. Behind them, the Inquisitors themselves, masked, voiceless, and terrible in their stillness. Their arrival is not an event. It is an ending. On the shrine world of Enoch Primaris, the ship Ardent Mercy came at dusk. It hovered above the Basilica of St. Ulthar as the bells wailed across the city. The priests gathered the populace in the square, each citizen reciting the oath of compliance as the Inquisition's envoys walked among them. Those chosen were marked with ash upon their foreheads, psychers, heretics, but also the weary, the broken, the uncertain. To doubt the Emperor was to invite the ship's shadow. Among those taken that day was a confessor named Harvin, once a preacher of fierce devotion. He had served for decades, his sermons strong enough to drive entire regiments to war, but the years had hollowed him. He began to question why the Emperor never answered. He confessed this weakness to his superiors, a mistake he would not repeat. When the Ardent Mercy arrived, his name was already on the list. Inside the ship, the world changes. There is no light, only the dim glow of warded glyphs carved into steel. The air is stale, heavy with the scent of sanctified oil and fear. The sound, constant, low like a heartbeat beneath the deck plates, comes from the containment cells that line the corridors. Each cell holds a single occupant, their thoughts wrapped in chains of psychic nullity. Harvin sits in one such cell, his hands bound, his mouth sealed by an iron clasp shaped like the Aquila. He cannot pray aloud anymore, yet his thoughts race in circles of devotion and dread. He remembers his last sermon, the faces of the faithful, the roar of "For the Emperor," echoing back at him, and wonders if any of it meant anything. He feels the ship hum around him, a cathedral of cold machinery and restrained power. Somewhere deep within, he senses the souls of thousands crying out through the void. The psyker wardens patrol in silence, their eyes hidden behind mirrored visors. To them, these captives are not people. They are offerings, fuel for the golden throne, sustenance for a god who demands more than prayer. The strongest minds will be sent to Terra. The rest will vanish in rites of secrecy, their energies consumed in rituals too sacred to name. But even aboard this vessel of faith and dread, something is wrong. The void shields flicker. The ship groans. A whisper spreads through the lower decks. Some say one of the psychers has broken containment, others that a presence has awakened within the ship itself. Harvin feels it first, a pulse, faint and rhythmic, echoing through his mind. Not the voice of the warp, not the Emperor's light, something else. Something watching from within the machinery. The cell lights dim. Across the hall, a prisoner begins to laugh, soft, hollow, desperate. The wardens react instantly, their shock staves crackling, but the laughter does not stop. It spreads cell by cell until the corridors ring with a chorus of hysteria. Harvin's eyes widen behind his mask. He understands too late. The black ships do not carry the damned. They collect them to feed something greater, and now that hunger has begun to stir. The laughter dies as quickly as it began, swallowed by the void. Only the hum of the ship remains, a low living vibration that crawls through the metal like a pulse through bone. The lights flicker, bathing the corridors in alternating bands of red and black. The psyker wardens move with disciplined silence, their null rods glowing faintly as they check the containment cells one by one. Each door hisses with static wards, the air trembling with suppressed psychic resonance. Inside his sealed chamber, Confessor Harvin kneels, unable to speak. The iron clasp around his mouth is etched with sigils of purity. but the symbols are starting to glow faintly, not white, but dull crimson. He feels the temperature drop, the air thin. The whisper he sensed before returns, clearer now, threading through his thoughts like smoke. Do you still believe? It isn't the Emperor's voice. It isn't any voice at all. It's the echo of everything he has ever feared, the sound of doubt given form. He tries to pray in his mind, but the words fall apart. The whisper continues, unhurried, curious. You served him, you bled for him, and still you were cast aside. Why? Harvin's heartbeat hammers in his ears. He tries to shut it out, to remember the teachings. The Emperor protects, the Emperor sees, the Emperor endures. But the voice answers with mockery. He endures because he must feed. You are the meal, preacher. A scream cuts through the corridor. Then another. The lights flare, and the air fills with the ozone stench of discharged shock staves. The wardens shout Benharic commands to the machine spirit, but the ship does not respond. The void shields are failing. Alarms blare in rhythmic bursts. 3 tones, then silence, 3 tones again. A ritual pattern, Harvin realizes. The ship itself is praying. Through the slit in his cell door, he sees one of the wardens collapse. The man's visor cracks, spilling black fluid down his face. The laughter returns, softer this time, as if coming from inside the metal. Harvin strains against his bonds. His mind burns with questions he is no longer afraid to ask. If the Emperor's servants are sacrifices, what does that make the Imperium itself? The deck tilts. Somewhere deep in the hold, containment ruptures. A wave of psychic energy surges through the halls, distorting sound and space. Chains rattle as cells unlock one by one. Not by human command, but by will alone. The ship screams. A deep metallic roar that shakes every bolt loose. The prisoners fall into chaos. Some collapse, their minds crushed under the sudden psychic pressure. Others rise, eyes alight with unnatural flame. Harvin's clasp splits apart as if peeled open by unseen hands. He gasps, the first breath he's taken freely in days, and the whisper grows louder. Now you see what they hide, what they feed, what they fear. He stumbles from his cell, the corridor bathed in flickering light. Bodies lie broken along the floor, their shadows burned into the steel. The surviving wardens fight to contain the spreading madness, chanting catechisms of nullity, their words dissolving into static. Harvin walks among them like a ghost stepping over the fallen. The whisper guides him toward the heart of the ship, the reactor sanctum where the captured psychers are stored in suspended agony. When he reaches the sanctum door, he stops. Through its narrow glass slit, he sees them, hundreds of human forms hanging in stasis fields, their veins glowing with faint gold. The energy they emit flows into conduits that vanish upward, feeding something unseen. A single phrase echoes in his mind, one he's preached all his life. The Emperor sustains us all. Now he understands. They are the sustenance. The ship shudders again, harder this time. A single alarm tone sounds, high, pure, and final. The whisper fades. In its place, another voice fills the air. Calm, ancient, mechanized, cycle complete. Cargo integrity acceptable. Souls processed 9,712. The light dies. The engines ignite. The ardent mercy turns toward Terra. Inside his mind, Harvin weeps, not for himself, but for every prayer that was ever answered in silence. Terra, the throne world. The heart of mankind's faith and the tomb of its soul. From orbit, the planet glows like an ember in an ocean of black, a dying flame sustained by the blood of trillions. Pilgrim fleets drift in endless processions toward its surface, their hulls inscribed with scripture and soot. Every man and woman who beholds it whispers the same prayer. He watches. But in the depths beneath the imperial palace, where the light of the Astronomican burns brightest, there are whispers that the Emperor does not watch anymore, that his gaze once blazing across the stars has dimmed into something cold and unseeing. Only the mechanisms endure, the great and terrible machine of devotion powered by faith and failure alike. The ardent mercy arrives in silence. It docks within the labyrinthine hangars of the Sigillite Bastion, one of thousands of inquisitorial citadels built into the bones of Terra itself. As its ramp descends, pallid figures file out, escorted by wardens whose faces are hidden beneath mirrored helms. The air smells of incense and disinfectant, of oil and sanctity. There is no sound but the footsteps of the damned. Confessor Harvin is among them. His chains are gone, his body cleansed, but his eyes remain hollow. He has seen the truth. The black ships do not merely ferry psychers to the golden throne. They ferry everything the Imperium cannot bear to acknowledge, the broken, the loyal, the ones who served and were found wanting. They are not executed nor absolved. They are repurposed. Harvin and the others are led down miles of descending corridors deeper than any cathedral, through walls that hum with psychic resonance. The deeper they go, the colder it becomes until breath itself turns to mist. At last they emerge into a vast chamber, an ocean of glass and gold. Here lie the thrones of silence, thousands of crystalline tubes, each containing a motionless figure suspended in luminous fluid. Their faces are serene, their eyes closed, their hands clasped in eternal prayer. Each one glows faintly, their energy feeding through golden conduits into a single colossal structure that rises at the chamber's center. The Golden Throne. Harvin's knees buckle. The sight should inspire awe, but what he feels instead is terror. The throne is not radiant, it is hungry. The light that spills from it devours the darkness, the air, even sound itself. Its hum is like breathing, slow and mechanical. For a heartbeat, Harvin swears he can hear voices within it, millions of them, chanting in unison, their tones blending into a single endless plea. We serve still. He stumbles forward, ignoring the warden's commands. His bare feet slip on the gilded floor. Every fiber of his body wants to kneel, to worship, to believe. But the whisper that haunted him aboard the ship returns. Softer now, almost sorrowful. This is the price of perfection. A beam of light engulfs him. His body freezes mid-motion. His mouth opens, and for the first time since his imprisonment, he speaks, though the words are not his own. Forgive them, the voice says through him. Ancient and faint, for they cannot forgive themselves. The chamber trembles. The wardens fall to their knees, screaming praises. The light vanishes. Harvin collapses, lifeless, smoke curling from his lips. In the silence that follows, a tech adept approaches, scanning his body. Another vessel failed, he says flatly. Recycle the remains. 2 servitors drag the corpse away. His blood leaves a faint trail that catches the golden light like a thread of fire. And far above, in the unseen reaches of the Astronomican, the light flickers, just once. A brief dimming, a momentary hesitation in the Emperor's eternal flame. On Terra, millions continue to pray. On countless worlds, penitents still bleed and soldiers still die whispering his name. None will ever know that for a single instant their god almost remembered them. The Astronomican burns across the void like a wound that will not close. Its light is holy to some, monstrous to others. A beacon and a warning both. On every world its glow cuts through the warp, guiding fleets and prayers alike. But within that blinding radiance lies something no mortal eyes can endure. The unending torment of souls who still serve even after death. In the vaults beneath the Golden Throne, the air hums with the low drone of the departed. Their minds, harvested from psychers, penitents, and oathbreakers alike, fuel the beacon that keeps humanity alive. They are the unseen choir, their consciousness dissolved into one eternal blinding scream. It is said that if you stand close enough to the throne's pulse, you can hear it. Not words, not hymns, but raw, infinite pain. The cost of illumination. Among the servitors who tend these halls walks a figure draped in black augmetic robes, Magos Chelin, once the hesitant initiate who watched men turned into machines. Decades have passed since the forges of Vanaheim, yet the memory of those trembling eyes still haunts him. Now he serves here in the palace's innermost sanctum, his flesh mostly gone, his faith fused to circuitry. His heart no longer beats, yet something inside him remembers how it once did. Each day, Chelin oversees the maintenance of the soul conduits, golden veins that thread from the throne through the planet's crust, channeling psychic sustenance upward. Each time one falters, he hears the Mechanicus priests chant, input failing, output secured. When a conduit burns out, new bodies are brought from the black ships to replace it. To Chelin, it is all math, sacred, endless, merciless. But one day, as he repairs a breach in the conduit array, the flow stutters. For an instant, the chamber fills with whispers, not the binary code of machines, but human voices, millions of them, pleading, remembering. Among them, he swears he hears a woman's song, faint, cracked, familiar. The hymn of the damned, Sister Ephila's voice carried through the psychic tide. The melody of endurance, not submission. He pauses. The other priests do not react. They do not hear it. He looks to the throne, its light searing his artificial eyes. For a heartbeat, he sees shapes moving within the radiance, not angels, But the shadows of men and women he once condemned to perfection, servitors, soldiers, priests, all, merged into the endless machinery of the Emperor's survival, and then he sees something worse. Within the storm of light, a figure slumped upon the throne, the Emperor himself. Unmoving, decayed, his armor fused into the metal, his face hidden by the glare. But beneath that stillness, Kellen perceives motion, infinitesimal but real. A tremor of resistance, a flicker of rebellion against eternity. The machine spirit of the throne screams. The priests collapse in worship. Celan alone stands frozen, transfixed by what he now knows. The Emperor's divinity is not peace. It is captivity, a god held hostage by the weight of his own worship. He falls to his knees, whispering a heresy so quiet that only the dead could hear it. Mercy for him. For the first time in millennia, the Astronomican falters. Across the stars, navigators gasp as the guiding light flickers. Ships drift, prayers go unanswered, and the Imperium shudders, not in destruction but in realization. The Emperor's light is not eternal, it is enduring. And endurance, like all things mortal, must one day end. The Magos rises, his eyes filled with the fading glow of faith, and turns toward the chanting priests. Keep serving, he tells them, his voice hollow. He still hears us. Above them, the light steadies. The Astronomican burns once more. The Imperium survives another day. But far away, on worlds that have never known mercy, men and women continue to whisper that ancient, forbidden word, the one carried from the lips of the condemned through blood and machine alike. Mercy. It moves through the warp like a ghost. It carries no creed, no promise, no rebellion, only remembrance. And somewhere, deep within the throne's eternal blaze, something stirs. Not divine wrath, not judgment, but a sigh. A single human breath, the Emperor still endures. But perhaps for the first time in 10,000 years, he remembers why.